in New
This
Orleans,
conference will now
Louisiana.
be recorded.
I welcome you to our presentation on Tanzania. I've been to Tanzania and Kenya once, as well as South Africa a couple of times, and just returned from South Africa in April or May with African travel and had a wonderful time. Sue, one of the ladies in our office, decided she wanted to go to Africa, and so I recommended African travel. They've been doing Africa for multiple years, and today we're very fortunate to have one of their presenters with us named Kevan. He actually was born and raised in Africa and has been all over that area. So if you have questions, please ask them, but we ask you to put them in the chat box, and then I'll give them to Kevin at the end, and we'll answer questions as we go along. We will be talking about a specific trip that we're doing in November of this year. Of next year, I apologize. We realize that not everyone wants to go in November of 2025. The information that will be shared today will be good for any vacation that you want to do. You'll see some of the resorts, you'll see some of the activities that you'll be doing, and then we can arrange trips in any time of the year that you prefer. And if Tanzania, you want to do Tanzania, Kenya, Victoria Falls, South Africa, we can make all your dreams come true. So with that, we're going to focus on Tanzania, but realize there's other places we're happy to share information on. Let me tell you a little bit about Travel Central. For those who don't know us, we've been in business since 1988. We have one goal. Our goal is to make sure that from the point you call us to plan your vacation till you return home, everything is just seamless as possible. We are your advocate when challenges do come up, and we're here to offer our advice, our expertise, and more importantly, some of the enhanced experiences we can get from being with a very large organization called Signature Travel Network. Now, with that, I thank you for joining us. But I think the best part is yet to come. I'm going to turn it over to Kevin, and he will share more about Tanzania, more about this trip in November, and more about what to do in Africa. Thank you, Kevin.
Fantastic, Melinda. Thank you so much. And or I am so proud and privileged to have this opportunity to bring you this taste of Africa. And as Melinda mentioned, we are going to focus on Tanzania today. But first and foremost, I wanted to thank Melinda certainly for the opportunity. And just to let you guys know a little bit about who we are at African Travel. We are actually North America's largest tour operator that focuses exclusively on Africa. We've been in business for about 50 years as African Travel, so we've certainly been around the block. And as I mentioned, we are exclusive to Africa. We don't offer anything else, no other part of the world. We really focus on that one part of the world, which is truly, in my mind, the best part of the world. As Melinda mentioned, my name is Kevin. I was born and raised in Africa, in fact, in Zambia, which is in central southern Africa, and lived there for much of my life. I am now based in the United States, but I actually go backwards and forwards. And Melinda and I had a fantastic trip to southern Africa or South Africa just a few weeks ago. And, Africa never fails to disappoint. It's or never fails to just give you this incredible life-changing experience. It is a destination that is simply filled with superlatives. So I will apologize in advance when you are going to hear a lot of superlatives coming from me on this presentation, but it just truly is what Africa is all about. So, a little bit about us at African Travel. Our moniker is that we know Africa purely and simply because it is true. As I mentioned, we do nothing else. This is our focus 24/7, 365. And we do focus on customizing. As Melinda mentioned, they have requested or they have commissioned this itinerary that's going to take you to Tanzania or give you that opportunity. We all hope that as many of you as possible can join us on this trip. But we also recognize, and Melinda and her team are there, poised and ready, that if this particular trip that we're going to talk about tonight isn't necessary or the best for you, that we will absolutely work with Melinda in order to do other things that work. So that would be really, really, we're all about giving you this life-changing experience in Africa. We do specialize in customization. We're local here in the United States and in North America, but we're also local in Africa. We have the largest footprint of travel in Africa, and we have our own regional offices. So once you arrive in Africa, it's still going to be our people who are going to be looking after you. And we partner with companies, like Melinda and Travel Central, because we don't sell directly to you as the traveling public. We really believe in the value of what a travel advisor brings to the table for you, not just for Africa, but any trip that you're doing anywhere in the world. And the more you use your travel advisor, the better they are going to get to know you. And therefore, the easier your life is going to be when it comes to planning your trips. So they're going to get things that come across their desks that you will never see in the public domain. And they're like, oh my gosh, this would be perfect for fill in the blank. And they're going to call you up and say, have I got something very special for you? We are a luxury company, so we do everything at that five-star level. And one thing that we are very well known for is the knowledge that our team brings to the table. We have people that have been working for us for 15, 20, 25 years. They know Africa inside out. Many of our team, like myself, are born in Africa. The president of our company was actually born in Cape Town, South Africa, now lives in California. So many of us are born in Africa, and many of the others who weren't born there certainly have lived there. Just a little bit, I think it's interesting to note that we are part of the Travel Corporation. For those of you who may not be familiar with that, Travel Corporation is the largest privately held travel company in the world. And it's owned by a family who are actually originally from South Africa, which is kind of cool. Now, this guy I know, this is our R moment, but animals in Africa, there are lots of RG moments. So this is certainly one of them. And of course, he is absolutely the epitome of cuteness and adorability. But what he represents is so much more, because at African Travel, we are industry leaders in what we call Make Travel Matter. This is sustainability, giving back to the continent of Africa, the conservation of wildlife, and indeed to the peoples and the cultures and the communities of Africa. So important that the people of Africa live hand in hand and side by side with the wildlife of Africa to ensure that Africa remains for generations to come. And at African Travel, every single itinerary that we create is going to speak and is going to include at least one instance of giving back to those three pillars, but usually multiple options as well. So that every time you go to Africa with us, you are contributing and helping to ensure that Africa will be there for the generations to come. Now, as Melinda mentioned, we did want to focus specifically this evening on the Tanzania trip that Travel Central has commissioned for you specifically. So this is a customized trip. It's going to be for November 2025, November 3 to 13th, as you can see. We're going to visit Arusha, Tarangire, Lake Manyara, and Ngorongoro and Serengeti. Many of these names probably don't mean much to you at this point, but I do hope that by the time we get to the end of the presentation, where we will do another recap of the itinerary, that these names will suddenly start to take on life and mean something to you. So Tanzania is actually one of my favorite countries. It is in East Africa, and I love it because of the diversity. It is possible to go to the different areas that we're looking at, and they're all very topographically different. They all look very different. And yes, when you're on safari, you're going to see the same animals, but in very different environments. And that's what makes Tanzania so special. And the best part of Tanzania is this northern area that I've circled here. And you can already start to see some of the names that I talked about are appearing within that circle. That's where the trip is going to go. So it will start in the town of Arusha. And Melinda and her team will be working with us, and we'll work on air to get you there into Arusha. There are actually quite good international connections. The airport there is called Mount Kilimanjaro Airport because, as you can see, it's very close to Mount Kilimanjaro. Mount Kilimanjaro is the highest point in Africa. A little piece of trivia about Mount Kilimanjaro is it is the highest mountain on the planet that stands alone. So yes, there are many other higher mountains, but they're all part of a range. Whereas Mount Kilimanjaro is, it's like, as the Toto song says, like the empress that rises above the Serengeti. It is truly the backdrop to Arusha. Arusha is a small but very, very bustling city. And we will actually, so the trip will start here. It'll give you that opportunity just to take a breath, find your feet, find yourself in Africa, and we're going to have just a couple of nights here and just a chance to really breathe and before we actually get started and into the main part of safaring in Africa. So in Arusha, we're going to stay in the Arusha Coffee Lodge. One of my favorite hotels in Tanzania. I absolutely love it. It is on a coffee plantation, hence the name of it, but it's just got the most wonderful lighting. And, so often people who travel to Africa, one of their biggest concerns is what are the accommodations going to be like? And I'm sure many of you think that it's going to be a sort of a mud hut with a thatched roof and a hole around the back for the bathroom. Nothing could be further from the truth. Up on the top left here, you can see an exterior view of one of the rooms, and to the right hand side, of course, the interior of one of the rooms. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful lodge, really with a great sense of destination. And we're going to have a day here to, again, catch breath, just really sort of get ourselves together and ready for what's ahead of us. And during that day, you will be able to go and walk around the coffee plantation. The staff at the lodge are really fantastic about explaining how the coffee goes from plant to table and into your cup. And it's actually very interesting. A lot of people don't realize that Tanzanian coffee is exceptional. So it's something that I think a lot of you will be saying, wow, let's take some coffee home. And it's actually a relatively easy thing to take home, and it makes a great gift for perhaps some of your family, certainly for your own pantries and cupboards in your own home, because you are going to be blown away by the Tanzanian coffee. The other thing, right at Arusha Coffee Lodge, this is literally on the grounds of the lodge. It's a very easy walk from the lobby of the lodge, is to Shanga. So Shanga is a very special experience. This falls into our Make Travel Matter experiences because what is happening here is they are giving people the opportunity. These are people who have disabilities, they have physical challenges, some of them are blind, and they make the most incredible work by hand. So you're going to see glassworks and beading and embroidery and all sorts of really cool things. And what they're doing here is giving these people the opportunity to use these talents that they have. And normally society would kind of pass them by. So they're brought in here and you will have the opportunity to meet them, to see the product that they're making. And I think you are going to be blown away when you stand there and watch them at work. Particularly, I mean, all of them are remarkable how they overcome their challenges. But the people, the ones who have no sight, it's just amazing the work they're doing. It's really incredible. So it's right on the grounds of the lodge, a very easy thing to do, and yet one of the most wonderful experiences right out of the gate that you will ever do. So from Arusha, we will then go out on our safari. Now, when you safari in East Africa, we are going to be traveling through real, raw, majestic Africa. This is Africa at its finest. If you've ever seen the movie Out of Africa or so on, these huge, great, big, beautiful swaths of land. And the first one that we're going to take you to is Tarangire National Park. It's about a 2.5 hour drive from Arusha to get into the park. And the park is extremely famous for its population of elephants. They have a terrific population of elephants here. And it's also possible sometimes to even get out of the Jeep. Now, the rangers are walking encyclopedias. They are also masters of understanding and reading the mood of the animals and so on. So, anytime getting out of the Jeep or walking through the bush will only be done when it is really deemed to be absolutely 110% safe to do so. But it is a remarkable experience. But there are many other animals here. Giraffes happen to be truly one of my favorite animals in Africa. They're so tall, and as you get so close to them, they're going to look down their nose with such disdain at you. It's so incredible. I love giraffes, and yet they're such gentle giants. The other claim to fame at Tarangire is their baobab trees. Now, if you, a couple of slides ago, you saw trees that had no foliage on. Here you're seeing one that does have foliage on it. Interestingly enough, they only have foliage for about 3 months of the year. The rest of the time, all those leaves drop off and they have no foliage at all. So a lot of people call them the upside down tree because they really look like their root system is sticking out with those stubby little branches. And yet again, just when you're in Tarangire, you're going to see elephants absolutely everywhere. You're also going to be really amazed by how up close and personal you can get with the wildlife. That's one of the beauties of Africa. It really is incredible how close you will get to seeing wildlife during and throughout the trip. Just another little note about Tarangire. A lot of people actually, it's one of those kind of hidden gems that flies under the radar. A lot of people have never even heard of Tarangire, even people who've been to Africa many times. And that's one of the things with us at African Travel. We're always looking for those hidden gems, places that fewer people go to. So it's going to give you that very intimate and exclusive experience when you're there. And when we're in Tarangire, we're going to spend 2 nights at Tarangire treetops. So these are elevated, the rooms are elevated up into the treetops. The views are absolutely magnificent. It's just a wonderful, wonderful lodge to get the safari off to what will be an amazing, amazing start. So after the couple of nights at Tarangire, you're going to be doing game drives in the national park and so on. We're then going to move on. And while we're driving, we're going to have about a 3 hour drive if you went nonstop, but we're actually going to divert a little bit and go into Lake Manyara. So as the name would imply, this is on a lake. They have a plethora of four-legged wildlife and animals here, but they also are home, or the lake is home to one of the largest concentration of birds. There are over 400 species of birds that call Lake Manyara home. And I love it because, we're just going to pass by. You're going to spend a few hours at Lake Manyara seeing the wildlife and learning about the birds. And a lot of times people are like, I don't know that I'm so interested in birds. I definitely, of course, I'm really more here to see the elephants and so on. And then when you come out of Lake Manyara, everybody is abuzz. They're going, wow, I never knew that I was so interested in birds or that bird life could be so fascinating. And of course, they are so beautiful. So Lake Manyara is really worth this little diversion on the way. The other thing that is going to happen on Lake Manyara, you have a very unique opportunity to see the tree climbing lions of Manyara. Now, lions very rarely climb trees. In fact, in other parts of Africa, they may go onto tree stumps that are 18 inches, 2 feet off the ground, that have fallen down and so on. In Lake Manyara, they have adapted to climbing 10, 12, 15 feet up into the trees. And this is the only place in Africa where you have that opportunity to see that. So it really is spectacular. And then as we drive on during the day, we are going to arrive at the end of the day at Ngorongoro Crater. So the Ngorongoro crater is the largest fully intact caldera on the planet. Many people believe that it should be the eighth wonder of the world. It is just so beautiful. And don't be deceived, what look like kind of hillsides that we're looking at here, that is actually about 2,000 feet down into the floor of the crater. The crater is just abundant with wildlife. So we'll arrive there late afternoon. We're going to go to the lodge, and the next morning we're going to go down into the crater. And it's very important for us to get an early start this morning because the crater is very popular. So we want to get a head start and be down into the floor of the crater ahead of everybody else. So you will find you've got a really quite an early morning start that morning. But I love it because the clouds are often cascading down the sides of the craters. The sun is coming up, and when it's just incredible. And as you're descending down into the crater, you might hear the elephants trumpeting and the lions roaring and so on. All of the wildlife that lives in the crater never leaves the crater, and no humans are allowed to live in the crater. So all of the lodges and camps are up on the rim of the crater or just a little behind. We will do a picnic lunch here, so we'll stopping. There's just an abundance of hippo here in the crater. It truly is a magical day in one of what is honestly an amazing part of Africa, but an amazing spot on our planet as well. It is remarkable. So when we're here, we're actually going to spend 3 nights in the crater area because you'll have that first night that you arrive, then you're going to go down into the crater the next day. It's the second night after the end of that day, and then the third day we are actually going to have some downtime around in the crater, at the top of the crater, and we're going to spend this at Gibbs Farm. So as you can see, this has got beautifully manicured gardens. The rooms here are absolutely wonderful. The food is fantastic. The views are spectacular. Did I tell you there were going to be superlatives? Yes, there are. And you're going to have the opportunity here to do some really cool things. You can go out walking, meet the Maasai warriors. The Maasai are the dominant tribe in this part of Africa. They're very interesting. The capes or shawls that you see them wearing in the pictures here, these are called shukas. They make them themselves. They have the most beautiful colors in them. And they live by the land. They have customs and traditions that are 1,000 years old. And they live by those. And to talk to them, listen to the stories that particularly the guys talk about how they have to move into manhood, the things that they are required to do. It's really remarkable. And you're going to be absolutely fascinated by them. The other thing that we do here is we work very closely with some of the schools in this area. So you will have the opportunity on that down day, as it were, from game viewing to actually go and meet some of the kids. They sing beautifully. They have these wonderful smiles. We often are in the process of donating desks to the school or supplies or whatever. So if that's happening while you're there and it's something that we've got going on, you would be incorporated into that as well. And as I mentioned, certainly meeting the Maasai warriors and going to their village and having the opportunity to delve into their culture and getting to know them is just such an amazing part. Because Africa is not only or really necessarily all about the wildlife. The people are a very big part. And one of the big things that we find is all of you tell us, that we hear from everybody that comes back. My gosh, I knew that the wildlife was going to be fantastic, but the biggest surprise was the people, how wonderful they were, how welcoming they were, how friendly they were. And I would love to go back and meet more of the people and learn more of their cultures. From Ngorongoro Crater, we're then going to drive on into the Serengeti. So the Serengeti is truly the pièce de résistance of this part of Africa. This is where the safari experience started some 80, 85 years ago now. Now we are truly going to be looking at the Africa that is from the movie Out of Africa, which, no surprise, probably my favorite movie of all time. The Serengeti is the biggest concentration of wildlife anywhere in Africa. The area is simply littered. What look like lots of little ants running around here, this is all animals. It is simply remarkable. Now, throughout the whole trip, but in the Serengeti specifically, you are going to have the opportunity to check off the big five. It's what most people who travel to Africa are looking to do. So that, of course, is the lion, the buffalo, elephant, Up in the top right there, we've got the leopard. The leopard is the most elusive of the big five. And then, of course, we have the rhinos. So, rhinos are the most critically endangered of all wildlife in Africa. It is at African Travel, this is a very big part of our giving back to Africa, is focused on rhinos and the plight of rhinos. As many of you may know, they are, poachers. The number one animal that is poached in Africa because the poachers are going after that horn because in many parts of the Far East, the people believe that the horn is a cure for cancer or that it is an aphrodisiac. What is terribly sad about it all is that the horn is actually made from exactly the same material as is in our fingernails. So therefore, we know certainly it's not a cure for cancer. And for those of us that go around biting our fingernails, we know that it's not an aphrodisiac. But it is a very, very big problem. It is the biggest poaching problem in all of Africa. It is a race against time. There are fewer and fewer rhinos left every year. And we at African Travel are playing such a big role in trying to save them for generations to come. When I tell you that the poachers are taking on average 3 rhinos per day, it's just frightening when you consider there are only approximately 20,000 of them left in the wild. So 3 a day, it's you know where it's going. A little part of what you are doing on this trip will go towards the protection of rhinos as well, because they truly are magnificent creatures. But the Serengeti, those huge, beautiful, wide open spaces, the herds of elephant, and you see that I'm featuring a lot of elephants tonight because I absolutely love them. They're majestic, they're wonderful. They are such social creatures to learn about how their lives are, how they look after their young, how they look after each other. You're going to be absolutely fascinated. And as I said, the rangers who are going to be on the game drives with you are walking encyclopedias about the lives of these animals. You're going to have throughout the whole trip, but particularly in the Serengeti, the opportunity to take some amazing photographs. Now, if you are really into it and want to spend or invest in or already have, you certainly can do upgraded camera equipment. But it's really not necessary. I go around with my iPhone and I'm in Africa all the time and have some just magnificent, wonderful pictures of wildlife just taken on my phone. But you will be blown away. Now, it is nature. No, but none of us can guarantee what you're going to see, where you're going to see it. Gosh, for you to catch a leopard in this situation, wow, this is your trip to Africa is made by one image. I do think it's important, perhaps, just to make note. You probably, some of you who have eagle eyes might have noticed that just to the left-hand side of the leopard, you can see that it does have the remnants of its dinner. This is a reality in Africa. There is a very, very good likelihood that you are going to see the predators, the big cats, eating something. And they have no choice. They cannot go around and make a reservation at Brennan's or Cochon or Capitol Grill or whatever it might be. They take what they get. They're very opportunistic, and if you happen to witness their stalking, their chase, and the eventual capture of or catching of something that makes their dinner. It's really a remarkable experience, just purely how they work with each other. But there are plenty of other animals, of course, as well. You have the opportunity to see lots and lots of zebra. And by the way, in Africa, we do call them zebras, not zebras. A little piece of trivia about zebras. I don't know if you know this, but each and every single zebra has its own specific striping pattern. No two zebras are alike. And of course, prides of lion in just all sorts of settings, very astute, very aware, but also often just hanging out, playing with their young. Really incredible. You will also, and again, I can't guarantee this, but Tanzania is home to the Great Migration. This is 2 million wildebeest and zebra that move around chasing after the new grasses and the rains. So where you're going, there is potentially the opportunity that they could be relatively close by, that we will get to see it for you. Another activity that is really fun to do, it's very time dependent and extremely weather dependent. So this is not automatically going to be included in the itinerary, but if the opportunity arises that it can be offered as an a la carte option, we will do that. And that, of course, would be to go hot air ballooning, to waft across the plains of Africa in absolute total silence is simply incredible. And looking down on the changing landscapes. So I said again, can't be guaranteed. It is so dependent on so many components. But if during the trip it becomes something that can be worked in and the conditions are right, we will work on that and give you that opportunity. So we're in the Serengeti. We're going to be 3 nights at Serengeti Migration Camp. A lot of you probably going, if I had just showed you the camp or the word or the name of it with the word camp, you'd be going, what kind of camping are we doing here? But you can see from the accommodations on the right-hand side, this is glamping at its finest. Really stunningly beautiful. And look at those views out over the Serengeti. Just truly remarkable. And you know, Africa is known for so many things, but one of the most breathtaking events that happens in Africa happens pretty much, well, it actually happens every day. The colors that you see, of course, are going to vary day to day, but that is our stunning sunsets. You know, you may have seen sunsets in other parts of the world, but until you see an African sunset, it's just simply remarkable. This is truly a life-changing experience. I love it because every time that Melinda and her team prepare these kinds of trips and they send people to Africa, they come back. Number one thing from everybody is this absolutely was life-changing. Because that is exactly what it is. That's the number one comment we hear from everybody. So this is just a recap of the trip. But you can see the 2 nights in Arusha, 2 nights at Tarangire, then 3 nights in Ngorongoro, one of my favorite places, 3 nights in the Serengeti with that absolute magnificence of Africa ending it all up. And Sue Altman is going to be hosting the trip. She's from Melinda's office. She's a lot of fun. You're going to have a great time with her. And with that, I'm going to throw it back to Melinda. We can see if we've got any questions. And I know Melinda has some closing remarks and a couple other things that she wants to go over with you.
Thank you, Kevin. And I do agree. Africa is a life-changing experience. It's a long flight over there. The longer you can stay, the better. I always tell people if for every hour I fly, I stay a day in the destination. So this trip is what 10 nights. We can always add on things like Rwanda. We can add where you can go see the gorillas. We can add on things like Kenya. It fly down to South Africa or Victoria Falls. It is somewhat of a flight, but we can do that. So try to make the most of it because it is a destination that you'll never not be disappointed and you will want to stay longer. You saw the lodges. One of the questions we have, Kevin, and you can help answer this, is they're talking about the weather in November. What is the weather like if
Okay,
someone
so
would choose to go?
absolutely. So November is the kind of the end of the high season. So the early part of November, the weather is still very good. What I like about November, and it was from your side of it, Melinda, a great choice for you guys to pick this time of year. Because yes, it's end of high season, but it's actually moving kind of into the shoulder season. So the value is better. It's not going to be so crowded in places like the Serengeti and so on. So really, this was a little stroke of genius you had here to plan this for November. So the temperatures are good. One thing that's always important to remember: a lot of people just assume everywhere in Africa is going to be blistering hot, and that simply is not the case. Here in Tanzania, we are at an elevation. We're at about 6,000 feet. So it's going to be a very moderate. The temperature is going to be very moderate during the days. You can expect it to be somewhere in the mid to high 70s, and during the evenings it will be kind of maybe in the mid 60s, low 60s. Unfortunately, none of us can guarantee. We live in this world there. I was just watching the Olympic Games in Paris, and I think oh no, I lie. I was talking to somebody that I was talking to that's traveling right now in Europe. And yesterday it was 100 degrees or 101, and today it's like 68. They're like in 1 week it changed. So these are things that we know are happening in the world. So don't, don't, if it's 82 and not 78, please don't come back and shoot me. But it should be, it's generally, you can expect it to be very comfortable. And with that elevation, that really helps with that as well.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, does anyone have any other questions about going to Africa or anything about the trip itself that they would like to ask? If you do, if you want to add it into the chat, we'll be happy to answer those questions. If not,
And well, Melinda,
go
I
ahead.
just wanted to say yes, and you put out an absolute wonderful little point there a few seconds ago about the add-on opportunities, and of course, Rwanda is right next door to Tanzania, and Rwanda for the gorillas. So if everybody has ever thought about doing gorillas, my gosh, Melinda, I think that will be another 30-minute special presentation just on gorilla trekking, because that is taking life changing to the next level. Simply spectacular. You'll be very close when you're in Tanzania. So Belinda and the team can absolutely make that happen for you, and you will not regret it.
And Kevin, I have to tell you, when I was in Africa with you with that group in May, everybody said of all the experiences they've done in Africa, Rwanda and the gorillas is one of the best experiences, and that's why I always bring it up because I've always thought that I needed to go there, and I haven't yet, but there's still more opportunity. But with that, we thank you for joining us this afternoon. Travel Central is your resource. We're your ultimate travel resource. We keep on top of all the different things going on in the industry, making sure that we know what's happening and making sure that we provide you with the best service and the best information. There is somebody who said they'd love to have a presentation on the add-ons, and maybe we can do that in the future because it is definitely something that we would like to continue to do. If you have any questions, as we said, Sue is going on this trip in November. We can do any trip that you would like, if not this one specifically, our name and our phone number. We have recorded this presentation and we'll be sending it out to everybody as well as adding it to our YouTube channel. This is our information. I love the idea, and and thank you, Lauren, for the great. It was great information. Kevin does a great job, and I definitely will consider this fall for doing maybe something on other destinations that you could add on to this, either pre or post, or just to know about them because it is definitely a destination that has become very trending and very popular. And so I definitely want to get y'all there. Thank you for joining us. Have a great afternoon. If you're here in New Orleans, stay cool because it is hot. You talk about 100 degrees, that's what we're feeling today. So try to stay cool and enjoy your afternoon. Bye bye now.